Blanche Delivers is the first episode of season 6 of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Matthew Diamond, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a solid start to the season. It's a really funny episode. I wrote down, I sounded surprised when I said that. It is a very funny episode. I wrote down some quotes, but it got to the point where I was writing down so many that I was basically just writing down the script. So I will share some of my highlights in terms of the quotes, but by no means is this all of the funny stuff. So we'll go through things chronologically, spoilers from now, and it starts off with Rose explaining that she's taking part in a senior sports class. She's actually doing ice skating, and jumping forward in the timeline a little bit, her instructor had told her to put weights on her ankles to strengthen her ankles, which she does, and she spends, I think, pretty much the entirety of the rest of the episode shuffling around because the weights are really heavy, which I just thought was very funny and very, very effective. Becky then arrives, Blanche's daughter, of course, and it's basically time for her to have her baby. And she wants to have the baby in Miami, which Blanche is not thrilled about because she's still not happy about the artificial insemination and she doesn't want people to find out, of course. And also, Becky wants to have the baby in a birthing centre. So they go to visit this birthing centre to see what it's like. And I have to say, it doesn't look clinical. It doesn't look clean. It probably is. I'm sure it's fine. But compared with a hospital, it definitely doesn't look like the safest environment to give birth. I don't know anything. I'm not a professional, but certainly for me, it wouldn't look like the safest place. And a woman off screen is screaming in pain. And clearly, it's not a calming environment as Becky had perhaps thought. Plus, there's not a lot of equipment around when they walk in. Sophia comments to Blanche, "At least you've got stirrups." And Blanche's face was filled with so much pride in that moment. It was very, very funny. The four of them then share birthing stories, and then Becky reveals that she's decided she will have the baby in a hospital after all, but she still wants to have the baby in Miami. And Blanche responds, "It's just that I have a reputation in this town." and Dorothy then goes, "Cheesecake, Ma," and shoves cheesecake in Sophia's face because obviously Sophia would remark about what kind of reputation Blanche has. But I think the episode did a really great job in the previous episode where they discussed this, of trying to normalise artificial insemination. Obviously very, very early days at this point. Sperm banks, very, very new conception. And I think they did a great job of highlighting a lot of the mixed opinions. I kind of like the fact that Blanche didn't completely change her mind. That felt more realistic. It felt more believable. But as we see in this episode, as we go through it, she should be focusing on what's really important, and that's her daughter and her soon-to-be-born grandchild. And I'll talk more about that when we get there. But I think they did a really good job of not making Blanche completely change her opinion, as that might have felt a little bit unrealistic, while still showing that there are different opinions about artificial insemination. And then Becky goes into labour. And what I love is that Blanche immediately jumped to help, because she and Becky had not been getting along. And which, I don't blame Becky. Blanche said a lot of really unacceptable things. But as soon as she was in labour, Blanche rushed to her side and they go to the hospital. And Rose was in charge of calling the Lamaze coach, and she kind of accidentally called her ice skating coach instead, who turned up at the hospital, which was probably a bizarre moment for him more than anybody else. And I think they could have done a little bit more with that. I think we could have got a little bit more comedy out of that, but it's not a big deal. And then Blanche is helping Becky. Outside, we obviously have Rose, Dorothy, and Sophia, and Sophia's making a lot of remarks about Dorothy and how difficult and long the birth was. And Dorothy comments that Sophia's really hurting her feelings, and Sophia replies that Dorothy really hurt her. Oh, I didn't write this down. I can't remember what word she used, but she was referring to her genitalia. And then it got heartfelt. And Sophia explained why she called Dorothy Pussycat, which is just a really beautiful moment. Back in the delivery room, Blanche is treating Becky like a child. And Becky's annoyed about it and tries to make Blanche leave, and then she calls her back in, and ultimately the baby's born. And it was a really beautiful moment. And the episode ended with no comedy. Those last few seconds were just moving and heartfelt and getting a little emotional. I feel like in that moment, Blanche realised what was most important. And that's not how the baby got there, but the fact that the baby has arrived, seemingly healthy, happy, well, it probably isn't that happy, but certainly safe and healthy in the moment, and that's what was obviously most important. So it was a moving episode, very, very funny. As I said, there were so many just one-liners that were just absolutely fantastic, and I wrote down several of them, and then it just got a bit ridiculous. So I'm writing down half of the episode here. So a really solid start to season 6, and needless to say, I'm looking forward to finding out what the rest of this season has in store.